Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on the newest episode of the ThunderCast. I got with me T-Rex Tyler Baker.
How the hell are you guys today?
And Mr. Joe Amato.
That's Joe, no nickname, Amato. Remember that.
Oh, yeah. I got to love the irony. Going to go ahead and plug some things here real quick. Like you to all, of course, check out, first of all, a new Facebook page called the ThunderCats Show, which is headed by a couple of awesome admins, myself being one of them. And we, of course, have Comic Basics, done by my friend Jeff. And we would like to thank a couple of the Patreon supporters we have with Jesse and Avis, who help fund this show with whatever little contributions they can give. We really appreciate it, guys. We're going to be discussing 3 different topics today. We're going to, of course, give a character retrospective on Jaga, everybody's favorite Thunderian ghost. We are going to be discussing issue 3 of the He-Man ThunderCats crossover, which, thankfully my copy is away from Tyler Baker because he would just...
Yeah, I'm glad it is too, because I don't see it.
And we are, of course, going to talk just a little bit about the last figure put out by MattyCollector for the ThunderCats line, Panthro. That being said, let's go ahead and talk about Jaga. Mr. Tyler Baker, what are your thoughts on this character?
He's about as essential as the Sword of Omens is. It's can be cliche to have kind of a wise old sage character, but Jaga's, particularly the Rankin and Bass cartoon version is just a staple of 80s characters. For someone that kind of comes in and doesn't really preach, but is very quick to remind line of, don't be quick. It kind of gives you lessons without beating you over the head and remind you, hey, look, kids are learning here. It was his character was so weaved in perfectly with the storyline that you didn't feel like, you're being talked down to or preached or anything like that, because Lionel's learning this stuff as the kids are watching, and he was just such a he's a very character that's high on mystique, and he's a character that I don't really want to know a whole lot about his backstory, because that's the fun part about thinking about Jaga's backstory, just how much of a badass Thundercat that he was in his prime, partnering up with Groon and other characters that I'm sure that were around at that time, and that whole backstory. But he's just a fun character to listen to when the music kicks in. I know Joe likes that in particular. When he shows up, this particular piece of music plays, you're like, oh right, what are we gonna hear from Jaga here? So he's a fantastic character. I love him to death. It's in any kind of Thundercat mythology that does not include Jaga, then you've committed just about as big a sin as you possibly can.
Now, what are your thoughts on the character, Joe?
It's funny you talk about the music, like when he'd show up. I don't know if you guys know where I'm coming from. Like when there's certain, sounds you'd hear, or a special, music score that played. But when his would play, it's like you got this safe feeling. You felt like, here comes, like again, the wise mentor. Here's the person that's giving you the advice. But I felt so safe when I heard him, because he's like a fatherly figure, obviously. But that's what I got from him. I couldn't wait till when he would pop up. And I know you've said it before, Thomas, it wasn't many times he was in the cartoon, but the times he was there, it was like really impactful and memorable anytime he showed up. And he gave me like you said, he would say what he had to say, then he, disappeared and whispered in the wind, if you will, just how he went away. It was almost like the Dungeon Master from, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. Of course, Dungeon Master was a little different. He came in, he said a riddle, and then bam, was gone. It wasn't as much as a riddle, though, from obviously Jaga. Jaga just gave you something very important that he was trying to get across. But like I said, I always felt safe when he showed up. That music, it was just, I don't know. It was like a humbling moment. I don't know if that really makes sense, if you know what I mean. But
it's a comfort blankie when Jaga's there. You feel like, you know what? You'd be like Linus, and you know what? I feel comfortable. Jaga's here right now talking to me.
There you go. Yeah, a blue blanket of Linus, and then the blue.
And he shows up in a blue aura, So it's all about that blue blankie. That Jaga is the blue blankie of the Thundercat mythology.
Son of a gun! What a way to make a comparison. But there you go. There you go.
I don't know if you guys have ever, like, in the heyday of the internet, around when it was first kicking off, have either of you gone to a sort of retro look back website back in the day called xentertainment.com? That's exentertainment.com. Either of you?
Never heard of it.
I used to go to that website all the time back in the early days. Even before I had a computer, I had a friend who introduced me to that website, and I used to go to it all the time and look at all the articles.
Man, there's one thing he said about Jaga that's always stuck to me. Is he said, you ever notice how whenever Jaga shows up, he's always, no wrinkles on his clothing. He's always completely put together. You never see Jaga, like, show up disheveled in any way. It's always like he's expecting to be thrown into Lion-O to give him some sage advice. You never see Jaga in a robe eating some fried chicken telling Lion-O how he screwed up.
Well, he's got all the time in the world. I imagine he's just like, if I show up and get my moral over with Lino, I can go to the strip club and hang out with the other ghosts and stuff like that, or whatever it is that Jaga does in his spare time when he's not telling Lino, don't be stupid, boy.
Jaga seems to me like more of the type of guy who would sit down and enjoy his stories in the afternoon.
Yeah, someone who likes to tell you about back in my day kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jaga is a very interesting, fascinating character. Of course, he is the archetype wise man. He's the pseudo father figure to Lion-O because his father didn't show up very often in the series due to, kind of the planet's destruction, kind of a big deal. And you find out that Jaga wasn't always the Lord of the ThunderCats. He primarily apparently took over after Claudus, Lion-O's father, was blinded in combat with the mutants with some unspoken war years ago. So that was a nice little backstory. But they were very close. And it's small little tidbits like that about Jaga's backstory and his life that I always found really interesting, because Jaga's one of those characters you have to have just a little bit of mystery to. You can't tell everybody everything about him. You can't sit there and give some sort of biography of him. No, that would ruin the charm of the character, in my opinion. But like Joe was talking about earlier, ThunderCats has 130 episodes, but Jaga actually only shows up in 39 of them.
Wow. And it's weird, like your impressions, sometimes just think about when you were a kid, you thought you'd seen him more. Like for me, I would have thought, wow, he was in more episodes. And to hear that, it's like, well, it just shows how important his presence was. When he'd show up, it was so memorable. You felt like you were always seeing him, I guess.
Absolutely. And another fun fact is, while they were trying to figure out a good name for him, they originally were thinking about Jaguar, which, it's a good cat pun, but I think
sounds like a He-Man name, doesn't it? With a hyphen.
Oh man, now we're gonna have another Joe Amato custom in a minute. Aren't we?
Here it comes. There you go. I'll turn him into He-Man figure and put the hyphen, and we got Jaguar. So, but no, go ahead.
But yeah, I like the fact that they call him Jaga better. It's number one, it's a shorter name. It just fits the character better. Short, quickly spoken, and he goes back to doing whatever it is that ghosts do on the astral plane, other than getting kidnapped by weird three-eyed creatures.
Yeah, I take that name. No, Jaga works so much better. It's funny because you almost wonder, well, what if his name was Jaguar? And then we heard that it would have been Jaga instead. You wonder if people would be saying, well, I'm glad it was Jaguar. You never know, but no, either way, I don't even think it would have worked. Jaga just sounds so much better. It flows off the tongue a lot better. Yeah, I'm glad they did use that, though.
Now, what's really weird is some of the previous promotional information about ThunderCats given in the 80s is they tried to show Jaga as some sort of ThunderCats wizard or mystic, but he never really was portrayed as that in the show. So I'm wondering, and unfortunately the book Hear the Roar doesn't really cover that. I was wondering where that came from and why the transition was done. But personally, I like him better as your sage, wise man with a lot of experience than just some dude who does some dabbling in sorcery.
I never knew that. I never heard of that. You, Tyler? I've never heard about that.
No, I've never heard any reference to that. I mean, obviously the 2011 cartoon kind of goes in that direction a little bit, but I just it's hard for me to picture him being anything more than the war veteran. The guy who's seen and done it all, and was not killed in combat because he was too good and just died of old age trying to make sure the remainders of Thundera survive. So it's I don't like the idea of it just seems like, and really back then there weren't a whole lot of war veteran characters that were just kind of, that you like, the sorceress was He-Man, but she was more like a motherly figure, not someone who was there to tell He-Man lessons and things like that. And I don't think Black Star had anything like Brave Star had Shaman. There's a couple of characters, but Jaga is definitely an original character and a little bit, maybe a bit above the archetype of the wise old character, because with what few appearances he had, they definitely didn't take it, overdo this character that could just show up in every episode line before you go down that tunnel, a kite that's bright stays in sight, or just showing up, you just say stuff like that. I just quoted the Doug cartoon for anybody who's wondering what the hell that was about. But do what?
No, go ahead. I'm just enjoying that.
I know. I could do a whole bunch of those too. It's a kite made of wood flies no good, and that's what Jaga would show up to tell Lino.
I have a question though, because I'm not sure. I didn't own all of them. Now, unlike how Masters and some other properties had tons of storybooks, was it ever mentioned any of the ThunderCat storybooks of him, like you said, having any of those abilities that you were speaking of, like maybe more of a mystic or some stuff like that? Or
I'm not really sure, because unfortunately I don't own all of that property. I'm working towards it, but funds are kind of.
I think for the most part they all, and I don't have the most knowledge of it, but I from what I always saw, it seemed like they pretty much maintained that same template of the cartoon and the other media, at least with like the Marvel comics and the Star comics and any of that stuff. What few I've come across, it didn't seem like it's not like the Star comics and He-Man where you got Squeeze working for Hordak and things like that, where things are just like, what, this is completely,
Right.
So I think for the most part, yeah, I think Jaga pretty much kind of, but then again too, there may be something out there that's completely contradicting what we're thinking right now. So,
well, firstly, thing I'm going to do is, at some point in the near future, I'm going to go ahead and do some more digging and see if I can find that promotional material that talks about him being the mystic, or maybe that might just be, the whole Berenstein thing in my mind. I'm going to make sure that that's straight before the weekends, so that'll get taken care of. And if I can find that information, I'll be sure to shoot it to both of you. But as far as I know, with the other material I have, like the comics, a couple of storybooks, a coloring book, no, Jaga stayed the wise old mentor. And the thing I like about that is you would assume, based on some of the other 80s properties, that he'd operate more like the sorceress and more like the dungeon master from D&D, but he actually seems to have more in common with a character like, say, Splinter than he would the sorceress, which is something I find interesting. Because he is the war veteran, he is the old wise man. He's not going to sit there and coddle you. He's going to tell you straight, no, you done goofed and you need to fix it, or we're going to have a problem.
And those are two different characters too, where the sorceress is, she's not really there to point out your mistakes. She's there to kind of console you and then kick ass when she needs to. Whereas, yeah, that's a good comparison of Jaga and Splendor. Like, they will help you, but they will also remind you you're being very foolish right now, and you will find out if you don't want to listen to me. And that's an excellent comparison there.
I also like the comparison because, people will mess with sorcerers. People will try to make her mad, but you don't do that with Jaga or Splinter. That never ends well for whoever's trying it.
No. Sorceress has been known to get captured here and there, but I just picture, like with, Splinter's been, overpowered a couple times, like in the first Turtles movie, just as an example. And a few episodes in the original cartoon with the Mousers and stuff like that, and being captured in the second episode. But overall, I tend to think of Splinter as quite the ultimate ass kicker, and I picture Jaga, as a full he's alive. Excuse me. That he would be the same way. That he's not somebody that you want to call him out. Well, I hope you brought your own army because you're going to need it.
Such a good character, and of course, he appeared in the 2011 series. He was the chief cleric, which, unlike the other ThunderCat clans, both in the original cartoon and the new one, seem to be comprised of different cat breeds, with Jaga, of course, being the most powerful. He was the mystic, he was the summoner, he was the healer. But they didn't really develop his character well because of the short episode run, And as much as I like some concepts from the 2011 series, I really missed Wise Sage Jaga. Because he didn't.
How many episodes was he in the 2011 series? How
Oh
many?
man, maybe 4.
Oh, the only wow. Okay, so he didn't have a prominent appearance and roles, or
Oh
I mean,
no.
not okay.
Because Jaga, of course, appeared, gave Lionel a few things of sage advice in the first couple episodes, and then he died. And instead of him wandering around the astral plane and appearing to give Lionel advice, he showed up once when I'm not going to go into too many spoilers because we're going to have our own episode at some point when we talk about the whole series. But
we are.
Yes.
He's like, oh damn, because that's the thing. I've watched a couple of those, but then I just stopped. I mean, I'm not insulting the show or people who liked it. It's just I wasn't feeling it. I think I watched up to an episode where there was that little leaf character that had his whole life in a day called Emmerich or something.
Yeah, that was episode 5.
And I stopped after that episode. I was just like, I can't do this no more.
Well, again, we're gonna cover that later.
Okay.
But he didn't appear in the same form, the same concept, and I miss that because Lion-O, the type of character archetype Lion-O is, he needs that guidance, and not just from other ThunderCats, but he needs it from Jaga specifically, because in the original series, if you watch the Exodus unedited movie, the primary weapon, the focus of the entire series, the Sword of Omens, was a myth to the majority of Thunderians. Tiger didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it except for Jaga, Cloudus, and whoever they kicked the crap out of with the weapon. None of the other ThunderCats can tell Lion-O how that weapon works but Jaga. That's one reason why he was so integral in the original series, because you have this powerful god weapon and a guy who has no idea how to use it. You need to have somebody show him how to use its individual powers.
Sure.
And that's why he showed up and told him several times, well, Lion-O, you need to use ancient technologies of heat and cold, or you need to bring rain, or just all these different powers that the sword itself wound up doing and unlocking, specifically because Jaga informed Lion-O how it works. And you need a character like that for that type of story setting. So I think Jaga was a fantastic character, very well done.
Definitely. I can't believe that you said he never came back in the 2000. I mean, I guess we'll find out when we start talking about 2011, like you said.
That's one of many mistakes that cartoon made.
Wow. What about his toy, his vintage toy? Did any of you guys have that? Because I had a few of the ThunderCat figures, and then I unfortunately sold them when I got older. I wish I would have kept them, but I never was able to get Jaga. And I always wanted Jaga, but I never did get that figure.
I did. I still have him. He's actually one of the first figures I've ever seen, and I'm sure there were some beforehand that was an action figure, like Prince Adam, probably a great example with his vest. But Jaga is the first LJN figure, at least that I know of, that actually had a cloth part of his toy, and that was the cape that they kind of ingeniously plugged into his chest with his ThunderCat logo.
Oh, I see. That's mean. I never had it, so I never got to look at the design and see how it was, and I had no clue about that.
Well, he of course comes with a removable helmet, and he has the Sword of Omens. It's a really solid figure, and I know because of the previous recording what you guys want me to talk about concerning it, but I'm not going to this time. I'm going to say if you guys want to know about something really unique about this figure, go ahead and message the page or engage us here, however you're hearing it, whether it be on Podbean, iTunes, or on YouTube. Go ahead and chat with us. I'll tell you exactly what's so unique about that figure. But it was a really, really solid figure, very, very close to the actual cartoon. Tyler, did you own Jaga?
I own very, very few of the ThunderCats simply because I didn't come across them a whole lot, and that was a toy line that I desired every character so much I couldn't stand it. And honestly, I don't recall as a kid remembering Jaga was a figure, because I just remember being more inclined to wanting Lion-O, Monkian, Panthro, Tiger. I mean, just anybody could get my hand. Tuscarora and Snowman were two, and Rotaro.
Man, you cannot walk into a comic shop nowadays and not see a loose Tusker Warrior for sale.
And I picked up on that as I go to, he must have been a peg warmer as a kid, him and Hachiman, because they're so easy to find. But Jaga was pretty oblivious to me as a toy, just because I remember seeing the back of the packaging when I got Jackalman and I think Vulture Man too, and just was so, starry-eyed looking at them because I just thought they looked incredible. But Jaga was one that did not realize that until I got older and started looking at price. I was like, wow, they made a Jaga figure too. And of course, it didn't take long to figure out. So he's arguably one of the most, aside from Pumire, Bengali, and Linkso. Well, and then the Rampagers too.
Mm-hmm. The ironic thing is you just listed off Tuska Warrior, Hachiman, and Rotaro characters you've either seen or had. But the ironic thing about that is you not knowing about Jaga is he was in the same wave.
Yeah, but he like I said, it just as a kid it just didn't register to me because I was looking, because I had seen Hachiman briefly, especially like the miniature figures, which when I was in daycare, there was a couple of kids who had some of the ThunderCat figures, and actually, ironically, the kid that had Tuska Warrior and Snowman of Hook Mountain is now my stepbrother.
Huh.
And I remember telling him years later, I was like, I remember you in daycare, and you had Tuska Warrior and Snowman of Hook Mountain. It drove me crazy. I'm like, he's got them ThunderCat figures I desperately want.
Crazy.
So he got a big kick out of it. And I told his dad, who was my stepfather, about that too. And they all just got a big kick out of it. Like, yeah, he had ThunderCat toys that I really wanted. But make a long story short, I was not aware that Jaga was a toy. It just did not. I just didn't look at Jaga the same way I do now as an adult. Because as a kid, he was like the old man character, and to me, it was more about the young muscle guys and the cool, awesome looking villains. The old man would not have.
Yeah, but I still think it's funny. We talk old man, but that dude was still pretty jacked.
Oh, he was. But as a kid, I'm just saying that's why it made me so mad when I watched him fight Groon instead of Lion-O in the Ghost War. I'm like, I don't want to see the old man win the day. I want to see Lion-O win. That's why I could not have. I didn't really enjoy the first Star Wars as a kid. I'm like, Luke needs to be fighting Vader, not Ben Kenobi. Because I could not identify with the old man. I wanted the young, strong hero to win the battle. And that's why the old man characters were never a big deal to me, except Splinter. I liked Splinter a lot as a kid. But Jaga was not somebody that, as a kid, that I gravitated towards until I got older.
Those are all reasonable things, and trust me, I think everybody can understand that. But I'm just gonna say this: I hope when I'm like 70 or 80, I look as good as Jaga does.
I am looking as good as Jaga. Facial hair and everything.
Nice, but real quick, since we were talking about the toys, I would like to point out that somebody, and this was years ago, actually made a Jaga custom, but not like a modder to where they took a pre-existing figure and just changed clothing or accessories. What he did was he did a complete cast of the figure in translucent blue.
Yeah, seen that. That's pretty cool. That was cool. That would have been awesome official figure to have.
Why haven't you done that, Joe?
Well, I've said it before. I don't do the molding casting thing.
It's expensive.
Not only expensive, but when I first started doing the customs, I did contact multiple companies. And because I said, is there going to be issues if I would ever, make custom figures or something? And they said, we'll be honest with you. They said, if you're doing one-of-a-kind customs, we don't care. They said, but if you start casting our products and selling them, and if there's more than a certain amount, they said, they legally can come after you. And that's whether it's 50, like 1,000 or even 50. It's just if they're in a mood, they can look at you and come after you. So I've never felt safe wanting to ever do molding and casting. I know some people do it. Hey, and I love and I appreciate what they do. It's awesome. But I get nervous. So I was like, nope, Joe Amato is always just going to do one-of-a-kind things. So if you want something that's different, it's always going to be just a unique piece. But no, that's the reason I never did it. But I would have loved to, though, because seeing something like you said, a Blue Spirit Jaga, my God, I remember seeing that custom. Looks freaking bananas. It's awesome.
I can see the Horseman doing that.
Man, I hope so.
Yeah, I could totally see us getting two different Jagas, and like I'm not going to question that.
That's what's going to happen. Oh, it's a no-brainer, especially with looking at the classics figures that they've already done these kind of clear casted things. Trust me, when they get back to the ThunderCats license, which Super 7's gonna get, trust me, when Jaga comes, you're gonna get a blue clear casted one.
Well,
Guaranteed.
that's a chase variant that deserves to be made, not like the Spirit of Horak figure. Like, what a waste of money that was.
The Jolly Rancher.
Yeah,
I call him. Yeah.
It's like I'm tired of being, hornswoggled, and I was like, man, I shouldn't even bother. Like, that's when I said, I'm not worried if I get every variant from classics, but that is something that needs to be made. You got your standard Jaga version with the Sword of Omens. That way you can pose them with Groon, and then the Spirit Jaga.
Definitely.
What's really neat, guys, is when they first announced the Matty line for ThunderCats, they already announced that they already have Groon and Jaga.
I was so upset to hear that Groon was coming, and then they said, "Oh man, we lost Groon." Oh, you just want to flip over every table you come across,
Yeah,
it's all right, Tyler. We'll get you some Centurion-esque armor, get you a nice Thundrinium or Thundranium mace. We'll just send you off to him.
Yeah. I'll just come after him, and I'll turn into a big giant and just start destroying everything I come in contact with.
On the news today, a man dressed as a ThunderCat assaulted Mattel CEO.
I'm looking for Jaga.
that's really good.
Man, I'd be right there with you. But anyways, we went ahead and we've talked about Jaga as a character, so we're going to go ahead and segue now into discussing the third issue of the ThunderCats He-Man comic. So, Tyler,
AKA the seventh level of hell.
Somebody trank Tyler because this.
Oh no! I would never trank a man with that much rage because I can identify with that.
It's becoming quite popular for me to be so pissed off about this. So I guess it's turning a negative into a positive here. People enjoying me seeing so angry at this stuff.
Well, I mean, you're like a big muscly dude. If you can't get angry and rip into things, what's the point?
Well, we're in this day, we're not allowed to have a negative opinion. We're all supposed to be hand in hand and appreciate all efforts, because, it's. But you know what? A new dawn is upon us here, and it starts with the three of us. It's like
the dawn of rage.
More of this accepting stuff because it's out there. It's like it deserves to be stomped into the ground if it's less than. By the way, before we get into this, I took Thomas's recommendation and got the first issue of the Batman Turtles crossover from the animated series, and I'm already sold on that series after the first issue. So it is possible, people, for a proper crossover to be done. So for people to think that, well, it's what stories can you tell with these? It's like, no, you can tell good stories, and this is you can tell wonderful stories with He-Man and ThunderCats. So before we describe just how bad it is, and will continue to get worse, it is possible to do good crossovers. So, and I thank you for your recommendation. I signed up for the series today at the comic shop.
Oh, it's so much fun. These characters, whoever's writing them, and unfortunately I can't recall the name, has a genuine love of these properties and knows what he's writing about.
Yeah, and unfortunately we can't say the same about He-Man ThunderCats right now because everybody wants to just hire the first guy who walks through the door. And did you like He-Man as a kid? Oh, yeah. I remember watching it with my little sister. Done deal. Write him a check.
God. But we're going to go ahead and segue into it. And first thing we're going to cover is the positives. Joe, would you run us through the positives, please?
The positives, the only thing, obviously, I say this 5,000 times. The art is a positive.
God.
I know. Isn't that sad? That's all I can keep saying.
I'm sick of people. And then everybody starts out with that same remark. Well, I do like the art.
Isn't it terrible? And that's what's sad. That's all we can say. And then besides that was the issue start off with, okay, finally we're seeing the ThunderCats. Finally we're seeing them. And they're getting down and there's some good fights. It was good to see at least some fighting for once. I mean, well, not for once, but finally seeing them fight. But it seemed like there were some good little scenes, some good action, some back and forth. It seemed like they were trying to represent them pretty much well. I mean, like, like a scene where, again, I've said this before, like when Wily Cat, I think they both gave Cheetara some like bombs, and Cheetara goes real quick and just zooms around Skeletor and sets all these bombs off. I mean, it seems like everybody at least was pretty much in the tone of what you'd kind of expect when seeing the ThunderCats. So they were getting down. But then the story comes, and the story is horrible. But that's the starting off with the positives. I don't even know if, Thomas, if you have positives, but you can go with that and then go into the negatives. But did you find anything redeeming in this at all?
I enjoyed aspects of the art, but I say aspects.
Okay.
I believe that Freddie Williams, I keep saying William Freddie for some reason. Freddie Williams II, I believe that he is a good artist. But like every artist, there's a niche you fill, or niche, or however you want to pronounce that. And I don't believe this is his. The crossover he did last year with Ninja Turtles and Batman suited his art style better than ThunderCats and He-Man does. So unfortunately, I'm seeing even in his art now that is suffering. But the other than what little part of the art I enjoyed, what I did enjoy was just a couple of the back and forth in terms of humor. Like one scene where, after the aforementioned bombs go off and Skeletor's on fire, and they're like, should we put him out?
Right.
Things like that I did enjoy, but that's all I can say, unfortunately. So It is now time for the raging. And yes, this is Nerd Rage. And if you are listening to this and you don't appreciate Nerd Rage, why are you here?
I think they're appreciating it, especially when seeing, just for an example, sales of the one issue to another issue. Like I think issue 1 possibly sold just around 33,000. The next issue went down to 21 or 22. So it was an 11,000 issue drop. So trust me, they're feeling the rage. They're seeing the disrespect that both properties are getting. So, no, I think anybody tuning into this, like I said, they're just getting honest opinions. I mean, it happens. If you don't like something, you're going to speak up. So hit your rage. Since I start off with the goodness, why don't you hit your rage and I'll join with mine, and then we'll join together with rage.
Okay, first and foremost, we have ThunderCats, of course, being shown as not as functional as they should be. For some reason, there's this tired nonsense about Lion-O has the mind of a kid. He has the mind of a kid. He has the mind. That happened at the first part of the first season. He grew. He became more intelligent. He started acting like an adult. He completed the anointment trial just like every other Lord of the ThunderCats has, including beating an enemy far more dangerous and powerful than any of the other ones that any of the other known ThunderCat lords have bested.
Without the sort of put that in your pipe and smoke it.
And not just that, he's also bested every other villain for the most part without it either, including the Lunatics, with just a small bag of tricks. So we have.
You're right. Isn't that annoying? I mean, like you said, that they're making it back to where, like you said, like he's still the boy, and then even like I told you that thing I hated. I think it was Chitara that said something like "stay" or something like he's a dog.
Yes.
It's like I was like, oh come on! I mean, why are you talking to him like this? It's like, what are you guys combining? You're trying to get elements of parts of the beginning of the first season, and then take stuff from season 2 and mix it all together. It's like your brains are just scrambled with your writing. It's just terrible. He's already been the leader of the ThunderCats for a long time. It's not like, oh, he just, became the big Lion. He grew, and this is, I don't know, 2 days into it, and then all of a sudden they're on Eternia. That's what I mean. That's not how this is going. That doesn't even make sense. Oh, my brain was. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Thomas.
But they're not showing how efficient these guys are at what they do. We have Panthro, who is a skilled martial art master. I don't believe Thundera has a concept of dans, but Panthro is an expert in what he does, and they're not really showing the ThunderCats their strengths. Tigra is very good at analyzing things. Panthro is very good at combat. Chitara is very good at using her speed as an advantage, and Lion-O himself is an absolute powerhouse of viciousness. This is the same dude who, for the first part of the first season, would, of course, call the ThunderCats when he needed help. But in the episode, the Demolisher, he winds up calling them, not because he needs their help, but to stop him from ripping this other guy to pieces after he pulls the dude's ship out of the sky. And here he is struggling with somebody who's not as competent in combat as Skeletor. And Skeletor is a fantastic sorcerer. That is his strength. That's why it's interesting to pit him against He-Man, because He-Man's strong, he's powerful, and Skeletor is a sorcerer. It's the same concept you see in stuff like D&D all the time. but you see him struggling in even just the smallest exchanges, all of them doing so, and they're not utilizing their teamwork like they're supposed to in the show. Something that they've always been capable of doing, even from the first episode.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. And another thing to disrespect Lionel, don't they say something like, "Our job is to protect you," or some nonsense? Like he has no common sense of fighting. Wasn't that even a line they used in this frickin' comic?
Yes, it was.
Ugh.
You know, despite the fact that Lionel's always led them in the battle, the fact that Lionel tends to be the one that initiates all the different conflicts and everything. No. They're supposed to protect him. Bunch of nonsense.
Exactly. I mean, like, again, if they ever watch the show, like you said, anytime he's out and he's fighting, he's doing stuff, then yes, he'll call them, for their aid when he just ThunderCats ho, and they all fight together, and then there's multiple fights going on. But again, you're right. He's the one that's usually into the conflict and doing all the stuff or initiating the fights or any of that stuff. But they're not. That's what I think that they got confused with, is because how he calls them, that maybe they thought, oh, that's their job, is to protect, since he calls them. So let's go with this angle. But it just went in such a different direction. It didn't work. The dialogue was just wretched. That's the worst thing of this, beyond the story just being everywhere. It's the worst dialogue I've read in anything, especially when you see, like you said, when there's this whole part where it comes to Mumra then coming, like out, supposedly now he's in Skeletor's head and Skeletor's fighting with Mumra. It's like just this inner battle, and Lion-O knows that now Mumra is inside Lion-O. So and I like this because I'm gonna lead it right into you to say it, but it's always fun since Lion-O, he realizes that Mumra's in Skeletor. Then get ready for this. And he shows him his reflection because he figures Skeletor wouldn't be ready for that. And then Mumra's like, oh, look away. And that's how he defeats him. But go ahead and say, why is that wrong with the whole reflection thing?
Okay, first of all, they're using a vehicle called the Thunderstrike, which showed up in the later part of the series. It's primarily used by Linkso, Bengali, and Pumara, who, of course, aren't in this because reasons. And after they had rescued those three that I just mentioned in the ThunderCats Ho movie, the miniseries right after that is called Mumra Lives, and he winds up being restored to power and loses his weakness to his reflection.
There you go.
It's something already gone by the time the Thunderstrike shows up. So this pair of writers are picking and choosing based on, I'm guessing, Google searches, because clearly they don't have the brains to actually look up the series, or what they want to include and what they don't want to, because they don't know how to intelligently write these characters. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. We have two writers. We have Rob David, whose primary work was that of the Eternity War for the He-Man line in DC, and then we have Lloyd Goldfine. And the thing that irritates me most about this is, did either of you two watch the 2003 Ninja Turtles cartoon?
Was that the one where they all...
I did. After Casey Jones' appearance, I was like, that's it, I'm out. And then I came back and watched Shredder's appearance and like, this one sucks too. And I was out. I was done after that. That cartoon sucks so much.
Well, there's Tyler's opinion. Yeah, for me, I watched a good amount of the series, but no, I didn't stick with it either.
Oh.
I eventually then seen that movie where it was like a giant crossover of all the characters from...
Yeah, where they pissed all over the original cartoon.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say this, and it might irritate you both, but when it comes to the 2003 series, regardless of aesthetics or personal views on the different characters, in terms of writing, it was solid. The continuity was kept up. The character dynamics maintained. The characters evolved and grew. Lloyd Goldfine is a good writer in that regard. So seeing him being an executive producer of this and failing to be capable of producing even one book with decent writing with this Rob fellow disturbs me. And Rob David, I'm going to go ahead and go into this little rant here.
Go ahead.
Rob David is not capable of writing anything original. And what I mean by that is this. Let's go ahead and take the Eternity War. I know that neither of you read it, and you're blessed men for it. I went ahead and suffered through it. The man could not come up with his own ideas. The man writes like horrible fan fiction, like Dragon Ball Z level bad fan fiction. And the reason why I say this is not only him pissing all over New Adventures of He-Man and how he wrote, because, look how powerful Hordak is. He's going to destroy a planet in the future. But no, number one, he takes the dialogue from King Grayskull in The Power of Grayskull from the 2002 He-Man series about, you've shown kindness, strength, all those different things. He took that and applied it, of course, to He-Manity, Eternity War. Same dialogue and everything. He, of course, stole an idea from Scripture, from the Bible, concerning Jesus and the woman with the issue of the blood, which he used for the Eternity War for the future King He-Man flash-forward prophecy. And now he is very clearly taking the idea that they used for Superman in the Death of Superman story arc, where you see the funeral and everybody's wearing the S symbol on their arm and a black band. And yes, I came under some criticism for saying that was stupid and that he stole it from Superman. But first and foremost, while this may be a real-world thing, it is not a common thing. It is not something your common man knows about. And this man has shown a consistent problem of being incapable of showing his own ideas. So me saying that he took this from Superman is far from a stretch and more of a high possibility of being likely. So Rob David will probably never hear this, but in case you do everybody a favor, go back to elementary, find out what shapes are, numbers are, and letters are, and maybe, just maybe, if you study really hard, you might have an original idea of your own. Because currently you're not capable of doing big boy work.
Now here's, this is what I wanted to say about, again, more of the story. Because while some people say, it's a new story, it's a new angle, its own individual story arc, blah, 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 has nothing to do with this. This isn't what I mean about it being bad. What I mean is common sense stuff that's bad. Not saying, okay, because yes, they screwed up a lot of the stuff anyways about the history of both of these properties. And just by saying it's their own unique story, that's an excuse to write bad. But I mean, common sense, meaning, okay, check this out. Wasn't there a part in this issue where something about Skeletor says, yes, I know about you, Lionel, I know everything about you, or some nonsense? Okay, didn't he say something to this level?
Yes, he said his mummy told him.
Okay. All right. Well, if his mummy told him.
He's got a million of them.
Don't you like those third grade jokes and the little names back and forth? Skellabor and, the ever drooling and this crap.
The funny thing is I could actually see like 2000X Skeletor saying that more than the Filmation one.
Yeah, and then the whole stupid jackass thing from Mumra, which he would never say ever. That's not even in his vocabulary. Scout's so out of place.
They both have an absurdly high, and both in their cartoon appearances, both of them have a really deep well of, number one, for Skeletor, he has a deep well of really biting insults, but Mumra has a very high vocabulary. If you ever actually pay attention to what he says, what does he say? My pusillanimous pooch.
That's what I mean.
We have iniquitous work to do. It's just this.
Yeah. No. Jackass would never come out of Mumra's mouth. I don't care what anyways. That is terrible. And I did a poll on 3 pages, and everybody said it sounds stupid. And it was overwhelmingly people saying no way he'd say that. But what I'm getting at is apparently since he knows everything from Lion-O, then wouldn't he have known about the reflection? Wouldn't he have known to look out for the reflection? That's what I mean. It's like if you're trying to be clever with knowing stuff, then you just wrote something that was stupid because it's like Skeletor didn't know about it and wasn't ready for it. I thought you know everything. Don't you have all of Mumra's memories supposedly now? You know this stuff? That's what I mean. It's like use common sense when you're doing it. So they, like I said, they go back and forth with this stupid insults back and forth. They do Three Stooges type of humor where Mumra's having Skeletor poke himself in his eyes, which Skeletor doesn't even have eyes, so what's the logic? That's what I mean. I was like, oh wait, I thought this was supposed to be the adult story. They said, hey, you guys got to prepare. Quit living in the past with the 80s stuff where it was all fun for kids. This is an adult story. Well, why is it they're having some of the most childish insults and stupid moments like this? It's like, make up your mind. Is it serious or is it this kiddie? But even kiddie, it's just wretched with these lines and this humor. It's not funny. I find it's like, insulting to us as fans. Well, all this back and forth crap, and then they finally decide, they got to realize that they got to separate or something. That's how they're going to have to finally maybe to accomplish their goals, is if they can separate. And they figure the power of Grayskull will help them do that. And there's going to be a way by using the golden disc of knowledge to do something and do that. But either way, Lion-O gets the swords back after showing the reflection to Skeletor because, hey, he didn't know it was coming. Lion-O gets the sword of power, and he gets his sword back too. and he goes back to give it back to the prince because that was his goal, because Jaga told me, how the hell and when and what, so I don't know. So he's taking the swords back, and as he goes back, he walks into a funeral. Apparently this funeral must have happened within a day, because I thought that's all the span of this happened from the day before, apparently, when, He-Man Prince Adam got stabbed through the chest, and then he turns to He-Man, but then in the next issue, Skeletor gets the power of Grayskull, it sucks away from He-Man, he turns back to Adam, and he's dying in his father's arms. So now when he goes back, you see that, well, Prince Adam's dead. That's it. Prince Adam is dead.
You describing it just hurts my head.
Doesn't it? I love it. It is. That's what I mean.
I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, dear God, man.
It makes your head wants to explode, and that's what I mean. So I'm going to get to this. Now, you don't even have to be a ThunderCat fan or a Masters of the Universe fan to understand this. This is the other just common sense logic. Your son, Prince Adam, just died, who you known your entire life as Prince Adam. They never knew he was He-Man. King Brandor obviously found out while his son then was dying in his arms. But then you figure, okay, he had to go back to the palace, tell everybody in Eternia what happened. And in a span of a day, they're having a funeral for Prince Adam, but they don't even honor Prince Adam. And why do I say this? Because on the tombstone is the Iron Cross of He-Man. On the casket is the Iron Cross of He-Man. All across the palace, on the armbands, as Thomas was saying, is the symbol of He-Man. And while some can say, well, they're trying to honor what he stood for, because he stood for, he became He-Man. He protected everybody. No, that shouldn't even have been acknowledged. That should have been a whole separate thing. Like, the whole thing with Adam being told as being He-Man to apparently everybody in Eternia shouldn't even have been mentioned. But even if it was, can you give the proper respect to your son and honor the Prince of Eternia for his death? No,
Exactly.
let's just shoehorn He-Man into this and just screw Prince Adam. Is that not the most disrespectful thing you could ever see in a comic for common sense?
That's up there.
Yes, that's my rant about it. But go ahead. That's what I mean. Wasn't that just, it's idiotic. You don't do that for your son. Screw my son. Hey, he was He-Man, so let's just put He-Man symbol everywhere. Screw Prince Adam. Stupid.
A few years ago, after Final Crisis in DC, there was a whole storyline where Batman supposedly died. Now, it was written by Grant Morrison, so it was all convoluted nonsense, and I'm not going to go too far into it. But, of course, they had a funeral for Bruce Wayne. In public, at least some sort of it. But the Justice League members of Batman's Bat family gathered together and had their own personal funeral for who Batman is. That would have been a smarter way to go about this.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It should have been completely separate, because He-Man is coming back. It's going to happen. So it's like in what Tyler said before. He mentioned, he was like, okay, now you just basically just ruined his whole secret identity, because now he's coming back. It's like, okay, well, everybody knows now. If you wouldn't have did this stupid crossover crap of showing that, it's the same person, you could have kept this secret. You could have just kept saying, let Adam be dead. And they're wondering, where's He-Man? Why isn't He-Man here? And where has he been for a couple of days if, supposedly he'll be gone for, a couple days or something. And then, bam, he just shows back up however he comes back alive. But then that way you could have kept the secret. So what's the point? You just put the secret out there, and then now, bam, here comes He-Man back. Oh, well, there's He-Man. Oh, and it's Adam, and oh, fantastic. It was just, God, use common sense when writing this stuff. Is it that hard?
Yes.
yes, it is. It is.
All right, so that's pretty much our view on the comic. I know it's not, sunshine, rainbows, butterflies, but it's not going to be.
Oh, wait, and one final thing, remember how it ends. It ends where, obviously, you see that now Skeletor, along with Mumra, have used the Golden Discs of Knowledge to summon who to help them get the power of Grayskull? The ancient spirits of
Yeah.
And they're like giants. They're over the Palace of Eternia, and there you go. That's how it ended. So, however, that makes sense that now they're serving them, but whatever. So yeah, we'll move past it.
Serving lemonade on the side of the road with piss in all the jars.
It's whatever. None of this.
There you go.
But that concludes our talk about the comic. So we're gonna go ahead and segue a little bit. Thankfully, we've got about 12 minutes left before our time's up. I am timing it this time.
Go ahead, kick it.
But we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of discussion about the MattyCollector Panthro figure. Tyler, have you gotten yours yet?
Oh boy, do I.
Oh, man. Why don't you tell me your thoughts of him, man?
Oh my gosh, it was I mean I just I could not wait to crack him open, and I just was I worked the most with him on poses because I'm like I want to have the most dynamic pose for Panthro, and I was just taken aback how wonderful and perfect the Panthro figure is, and having that nunchuck spinning accessory, I was like, that's the only way I'm displaying that, and I did it. I got in a nice action pose, like he's ready to go into kung fu mode, spinning the nunchucks behind his head, and
His umbrella?
yeah, his umbrella. Yeah.
I didn't know. I told you when I first seen the figure, I was like, why's he got an umbrella? And then somebody explained it was a spinning nunchucks. I was like, whoops. I was like, okay. I felt like they could have handled that differently.
Put a Don's hat on Joe and put him in the corner for that.
Exactly. I'll be in the corner. Well, hey, exactly. And I'll stay in the corner for the rest of this topic because I didn't have the money to buy one. So you guys go ahead and talk about that figure.
It's perfect. I mean, it's if people want to sit and find some sort of nitpick complaint and be like, then I will find you in a really brooding dark alley and just let you have it, because there's nothing to complain about this figure. I don't care, from paint applications to ankle articulation and all these other little pissant things that some people decide to go, oh, I don't like how the left shoulder moves in a counterclockwise fashion or some BS like that. It's a perfect figure, and we can only expect to get more and more from the Horseman. You know, it's the epitome of what you could really hope for from a ThunderCats line done by the Four Horsemen. Panthro is the epitome of that kind of quality.
He's fantastic. And, you might have to find me in a back alley, but I have only one issue here.
Oh, dear God. Here it comes.
Well, when I was taking his nunchucks out, man, just the way it was packaged, it scratched quite a bit of the paint on the red chuck. That's irritating. Like, right out of the package. But other than that, man, this figure is fantastic. The He-Man buck for Panthro works so well that you can almost assume at first glance that it's not even a He-Man buck, because it works so well for him. I like how they did his gear. I love the sculpting and articulation that they've done. I like all the mold details. I love the accessories he's set with. He's a fantastic representation. And I've seen the prototype work that Bandai had done for their version. This beats that one hands down, like not even a question. And since we were talking about posing, Tyler, the way I have mine posed is in his right arm, I have his loose nunchuck with the red chuck in hand, the blue one under his armpit, and the spinning chuck in his left hand. I know he's never been depicted having a pair or two pairs in each hand, but, I like the way that looks. So that's how he's sitting on my shelf.
Yeah, Panthro could pull a Michelangelo running around with two sets of chucks because he's Panthro.
It's funny. I was gonna say real quick. I know it would involve too much, but not to dwell on his umbrella chucks that I was calling him.
Joe,
You're like, Daryl, stop it. Well, here's the thing. How we were earlier talking about the translucent, hopefully Jaga that they make in the future, which they will. I think it would have worked well if, like, maybe the spinning whirling part between chuck sections, if you will, like one part it would just seem the nunchuck, then it would have been clear translucent, then a nunchuck, then in waves, like a little waving motion, then I think it would have looked more like it was spinning. I just felt like something could have been done to make it look more like spinning.
I got it with spinning.
What Joe was referring to is it does look like it's spinning, but the wave look that they have is only on one side of the plastic.
Okay, because that's it. Because at a distance, I remember when I first seen somebody show, I really was confused because I didn't have the figure. I was like, "What's an umbrella doing?" I was like, "Oh, I see what it is." So yeah, I think if they could have just, whether how it was molded, painted, or something, it could have made it look better. But otherwise, you're right. That figure does look amazing. I don't own it, but he does look great.
You need to get it. Like, at some point, you need to get this figure. I will say that right now. I think you'd love him.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I mean, he does look great.
And I'll tell you right now, he'd be good for customs too, because the whole ensemble on his chest and waist is completely detachable.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, they usually make most of their armors and things do that. But yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Joe could do a customized possessed version of Panthro by the spirit of Hammerhead. like all
Heck
brown
yeah.
skinned and everything.
Well, now you're giving me ideas. So shoot, now I might have to order the figure just to do that.
I need to get a hold of some figures on my own because I plan on doing a custom. I think Tyler's going to appreciate. I need to get an extra Lino, an extra Panthro, and an Ular because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a custom Lino from the Return series.
I was gonna say, what in the world would you want Ular for? But if you're
For his,
going down, if you're going for the return line, then I'm 120% behind that.
yeah, I actually need Ular's legs for that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Like, who the hell wants Ular?
Yeah, I need his legs because he's the only male figure.
I'm not calling him Ular. Gosh, I even hate the name.
Why
Stupid
okay,
name. It's original He-Man. It's not Ular. God,
Exactly.
why did the
stupid
fan,
bios.
why did the fans call him Ular? What's the reason?
No, that's what Scott Knightlick called him in the bios.
Why? There's got to be a
Because
basis.
he's Scott Knightlick, and he's the one that creates all these ideas that the He-Man fans that are coming back to the fold are thinking that this is canon.
But it's all right. I still prefer Hebro over the Mighty Spector.
The Mighty Spectre. We won't speak of that figure.
He's that person who shall not be named.
I don't even display that figure. That figure, along with Sir Laser-Lot, they're ones that I actually just have not even showing in my collection. I don't like them. I put, and speaking of this, because Thomas, you won Castle Grayskull. Well, to let you know, I bent up the Mighty Spectre and I threw him in the dungeon of Castle Grayskull. That's where my Spectre has been displayed. And he's been there the entire time. He's just right in there. He first was on the shelf right when I got Castle Grayskull. Bam. Put him right in there and he stayed there.
Customize some Shadow Beast poop and throw it in there too while you're at it.
Well, I actually like the idea of Laser-Lot, not because I care for the guy's design. I like the pun.
I hate the pun. I hate it because I hate that it's playing off of Sir Lancelot. It's like, who's Sir Laser-Lot? Like, wow, what an original name and idea. Oh, wait, you painted him red and blue? That doesn't seem too familiar from any DC characters you might have worked on. Wow.
Well, the thing is,
and they always act like we're supposed to sympathize with them because they came up with these crappy designs as kids. I'm like, so what? Doesn't mean it needs to be a figure just because you did it as a kid.
Man, it's just sorry. That's one reason why I want to own Generation 1 Horrible from the Headmaster Transformer line, because the pun kills me. I've got to have it.
Yeah, I do like that pun. I hate the Sir Laser-Lot one, but yeah. And I didn't mean to side rant and turn the podcast into a He-Man podcast at the end there, but yeah, there's some crap figures.
Everybody enjoys a good bashing of those two characters. I think everybody listening can appreciate that.
Well, again, all three of us, we're all three He-Man fans. I'm more of a ThunderCat fan. I've made no statement saying otherwise, but it's okay if we talk a little bit about He-Man. I mean, number one, the same company that produced the He-Man toys made the latest ThunderCat one, so they're at least somewhat tangentially related. But, we've discussed all those things, so I'm going to go ahead and go into a little bit of the news here.
Go ahead.
Before we close out the show. Let's see here. Got an email today from, of course, Super 7, who's handling all of the MattyCollector stuff since Matty finally shut down because somebody slayed that dragon. But it says here on their Q&A email that they sent out today, ThunderCats, 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 exclamation point, question mark, because apparently we've all been bugging them about it for good reason. They said still, we are working hard to secure the rights to continue the ThunderCats line. We hope to have an announcement soon. That's a very good thing, and I actually posted this on the ThunderCast Facebook page before any other ThunderCat page did. So you literally heard it from us first, doggone it.
There you go.
I try to stay on top of these things because I'm the only one who does.
Well, at least you got that, like you said, at least you got out there for the fans to know because it's coming. Have no fears. This ThunderCat line is going to continue.
Yeah, we will get groomed. We will get the Lunatics. We'll get the Berserkers. It's going to be awesome. We're gonna finally get a 2-time figure. It's going to be great, people.
Hey, better engineer that sucker right. I want to be flippable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. With the head's got to be able to spin around in every direction too.
And
you know what's funny, real quick? I'm sorry, I was going to say when you talk about 2-time, there was a custom I was going to be trying to do for somebody, but it would involve a Silverhawks figure because how
molecular.
What's that?
You say Silverhawks figure, and 2-time I'm thinking molecular.
I'm trying to think of the body. Wait, I'm sorry. No, what the hell was this thing? Wait, was it Tiger Sharks? Who were the ones? There was this one line where the figures flipped their
Tiger
back
Sharks.
Tiger Shark.
Tiger Sharks. Thanks, I'm a moron. Thank you. He was gonna have me use a Tiger Shark to try to make a 2-time because I was like,
Oh,
man,
you're
it'd be-
funny.
yeah. So it'll be tricky, but yeah. And speaking of other things, I was working on a vintage Claudus for somebody, so I'll be showing that pretty soon. It'll be coming up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, Claudius, the one guy that everybody never seems to recall how his name is spelled.
God, I hope I spelled it right. I spelled it. I think it was CLAUDUS. I hope it ain't with
Yes.
a W. It was you.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
No,
Good,
the
'cause
way,
that-
again, most people spell Claudius because they think it's a pun.
Okay. Well, I used the U. Thank God, because that's what I used for the card back that I was making and everything. So
And I'm sure it looks great.
okay, well, it'll be fun. I can't wait to show that when that's ready too.
But just a heads up, guys, next time we're on, we're going to be talking about the mutant known as Jackalmen. So why don't you go ahead and give us a couple of episode recommendations, Mr. Tyler?
I'm gonna go with Spitting Image.
Mm-hmm.
First appearance of the Driller, and it's a good Panthro episode. And it's one of the things I really enjoyed about that as an adult was seeing how much of a businessman Mom Ra really is. Like, he's a villain that will honor his debts. He will work with you. If you deliver the goods, he will pay you exactly. He's not a villain that I love that business relationship of hiring the Driller. Here's half your payment. You'll get the rest, upon delivery of Panthro. And of course he does deliver and says, leave me in my work. I love that idea that Mom Ra is a villain that's not about double cross just because he likes being a prick.
He's like a respectable mobster. It's just like the mob, They'll do you right, really.
I absolutely love that. I love that about Mom Ra. That makes him, different than Skeletor, where Skeletor would do it just to, because he can.
Yep, and screw you over, yeah.
Yeah, and so would Hordak. But it was fun to see Mom Ra do that, and that's what one of the things. It's not a big deal in the show, but when I watched it as an adult, as a kid, it was just you're watching it by the numbers, but as an adult, you pick up on things like I really like that trademark about Mom Ra.
That's a good perspective. I never thought of that, but you're right. That is pretty cool.
It's cool.
He's kind of a gangster. He really is a gangster, Mom.
Yeah.
Mom
I see him less as a gangster. I see him more as like a high-level politician.
Oh, I don't trust a politician. They'll double cross you in a second.
Well, Mom,
I guess that's why the mutants don't really trust him a whole lot.
Exactly, but the thing is, like a politician, he has a lot of power, but you don't ever want to cross him.
You just described the mob. They have a lot of power, and you.
True. But I'm referring more into relation of some of his other minions, because he'll screw over other minions.
No, true. I gotcha.
It all seems to depend on who Mum Ra respects on a person by person basis.
Sure.
Like Captain Shiner, Rotaro.
Yeah.
Those come off as characters that Mom Ra and the Berserkers, but the mutants themselves, I could see he would use those as pawns. And
he has.
Yeah, he has too. So, but there are characters that he does respect, and it's cool too. And you see that in ThunderCats Ho, the way he's working with all the various villains and the Berserkers. Working for gold, hiring Captain Shiner, and dealing with Rotaro. It's
yeah, we just did a mini character profile of Mum Ra unintentionally at the end. It's like we're gonna save this for a whole nother show, which we still could. But
it's fun. So
trust me,
I could go. Also, I'm just gonna make Spitting Image my recommendation for this to tie it into Panthro, and just because it's a damn good episode.
That's a good recommendation. And since we're going into a character analysis of Jackalman next time, I'm going to go ahead and recommend something Tyler recommended earlier in the last recording. I'm going to recommend The Mountain, and I'm also excellent episode of Larry Kinney talking to himself. And I'm also going to recommend Jackalman's Rebellion.
I just watched them all too. Jackalman's Rebellion, and the Driller's in that too. The Driller's back in that episode.
Exactly. So we're going to go ahead and make those recommendations, but we're also going to go ahead and say goodbye for now. Just remember that we have the people we mentioned earlier, as well as the Patreon supporters. If you guys want to hit us up on Patreon and support us, that'd be great too. The link's going to be in the description of the YouTube video. Joe, you got any parting words for us?
I have no parting words because I'm, like I said, still catching up with all these episodes because I didn't remember them all like both of you have, which is fantastic. So I'm still learning. I just know that I'm going to be watching every episode you guys just spoke of. So I have no closing remarks.
How about you, Mr. T-Rex?
Don't call me Osbert.
Not until I pay you back that Thunderian dollar, huh?
Ah, there you got it. He got it. Yeah.
All right. We're going to go ahead and let everybody go. You guys take it easy, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Adios.